Welcome to South Central Regional Library's Safe Inside Your Walls programming, supported by Safe at Home Manitoba. My name is Angela Lovell and I'm the branch admin at the Manitou branch of South Central. And today I'm delighted to welcome a very special guest, Miriam Korner. Originally from Germany, Miriam is a writer, visual artist, photographer, and wilderness guide who lives in northern Saskatchewan with her husband and her 12 sled dogs. Besides being an amazing writer, Miriam has done a lot of exciting things, including a 1,000-mile sled dog and canoe expedition, which I'm hoping she'll tell us a little bit about later. She is the author of 2 books for young adults, Yellow Dog and Kukave, and has also co-illustrated and written 2 children's books. She is the author of 2 junior novels, Yellow Dog and Kakave, and has also co-written and illustrated 2 picture books, When the Trees Crackle with Cold and When We Had Sled Dogs. So welcome to Miriam.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. I'm very happy to be here today.
Great. So Miriam, before we talk about your writing, can you tell us a little bit about your background, what brought you to Canada, and how did you get into training sled dogs?
Well, that's a long story, and it's almost a book in itself. But the short story is I was traveling around the world and ended up in northern Saskatchewan training sled dogs for a musher, lost my dog team, and a young man helped me recover my dogs, and that man is now my husband, and we live here with our 12 sled dogs.
So when did you decide that you wanted to be a writer, and what was it that led you to write books for young readers specifically?
I think I didn't really decide to be a writer. We went on these big adventures with our dogs. Once I had moved here, as you mentioned, we went up into the Northwest Territories on big expeditions, and at one time it's expensive, and it's expensive to feed the dogs, and people always said, wow, this is a really great adventure, you should write about those. So I did. I started writing nonfiction for magazines, and I told my stories just about my travels and based on that. But during those travels, we always met lots of people on the trails that lived in that area, and when they saw our sled dogs, they always would say something like, oh, I used to have dogs when I was young, and then would start telling us these stories about growing up with dogs, and they were great stories, but I didn't really keep track of who said what and when and where, so I couldn't put those in a nonfiction article. But the more stories I was told, the more I realized that's a really big gift. That's a really big gift to hear all these stories. And at first I thought, because I'm not from Canada, every Canadian knows these stories. It's just me who doesn't know them. And then I realized, no, people don't know what it was like growing up with dogs on the trap line, or in Nunavut, being on the land with their animals. So I decided that's something I really wanted to share with my young readers especially. And so I was writing for kids in the North, with the North in the mind, but I soon realized it's just as important for kids from the South to understand what life is like up here. And so all these little stories that I've been told over the years became memories. And Yellow Dog, they became the memories of the old man, and in Kakavi, they became the memories of Ipili and Elisapi. And so I found a way to share my stories in a way that would capture the essence, I guess, of all these little 1,000 stories that I've been told over the years.
So I think you've started to answer my next question, actually, but I'm very intrigued as to where you get your inspiration for your books and the characters in them from. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, please?
Sure, and actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna just share my screen here. Okay, so, and I'm just gonna try to make this into slide view.
And we can see it, Miriam.
Okay. So yeah, what inspired the writing of my novels? Like the short and simple answer is dogs. But as I mentioned before, the places we went with our dogs was in northern Saskatchewan, was the old trapline trails, and they were mostly deserted. The cabins were still there, but there was nobody there. And I kind of started to wonder what would have been like back then when we would have come to the cabin, somebody would have opened the door, gave us rabbit stew. So I was just thinking about that when we were traveling. And yeah, we spent lots of time outside with our dogs and sleeping on the fire, and in some had to sometimes survive a night because we were surprised by bad weather, and all these little things started to become part of my story. And in Yellow Dog, for instance, there's one scene where Jeremy and Justin have to camp out at night, and that's inspired by our own adventures. But I wasn't just only going in northern Saskatchewan, and I heard on the radio about a race in Churchill, Manitoba, and it went between Churchill, Manitoba and Arviat, Nunavut. And I heard on the race that Inuit mushers are racing in that race. And I right away said, wow, I wanna go there. So my husband and I, we got 2 teams together, and we did go to northern Manitoba and raced in the Hudson Bay Quest for 4 years in total. And all the experiences there then became part of the story in Kakari. Emmy Lou's a young girl that has moved to Churchill, Manitoba. She doesn't really want to be there, but then she meets young Barnabas, and who's training sled dogs for this big race coming up. So lots of that is inspired by my own experiences, like meeting a 2,000 caribou running across our trail and sleeping out in -40. But what really interested me was the people. Like the people in Nunavut, they have such strong connection to their dogs. It's such an incredible dog culture. And to see them talk dog with their dogs and learn from them, and their relationship to the land and being on the land, to navigate this race where the trail sometimes was overblown without GPS or compass, just by landmarks and understanding the land. And so, yeah, here's a little picture of me at the finish line at the race in Arviat. So we soon made lots of friends in both of these communities. And as I mentioned before, I started to write for nonfiction for magazines. But then I always came back to that one question: what would have what would it have been like to have lived in a time when dogs were the only means of intertransportation? So both these books really capture that question through stories that the older characters tell the young main characters in this book about their life when they were young. And yeah, and of course, it wasn't just my own experience. I did a lot of research. There's a really beautiful museum in Churchill, Manitoba, the Sanitak Museum, and an equally fascinating visitor center in Arviat. And I also read up on a lot of history. And this is 2 of my very favorite books. One is about the Saisi Dani relocations, and one is about Inuit knowledge that comes from the land and from learning from the land. So yeah, this is basically my inspiration behind writing the book. And Kakari, by the way, is named after a lovely dog that was gifted to me after a race. I think that answers your question.
That answers very well. And what beautiful pictures. That must have been such an experience. And you've had so many experiences, right, over the years. What important lessons do you think you've learned as a writer as you've gone through your career?
I think it's the power of story, I think, is what I really learned as a writer, and what it means to be gifted a story. I see these stories as gifts that were being told to me, and then the responsibility as a writer to do just to these gifts and pass that on to young readers. I think that's it's a really beautiful process, and I'm enjoying really how other people's stories have influenced my own story, and how I started to see the world in different ways by stories that, and experiences that were given to me. And then in my storytelling myself, I hope that I'll open that same vision for young readers when they read my stories.
So, Miriam, do you have any tips for any other aspiring writers out there who might be, watching this? Do you have any advice that you could give them?
Yeah, I think you really have to be passionate about what you write. I think, there's a reason why you want to write. There's a need to write. And I think the mistake people quite often make, they're looking at the market, they're studying the market, and they're trying to figure out what are people interested in, what do they want to read, and how can I bring out a book that fits this. And I think it will fall flat unless it is your true passion. And I think the writing is the first thing to do, is very much an inward journey to really look at yourself and see, why do I want to tell this story? What is my motivation behind that? And I think writing to me is always kind of a form of truth seeking. So what is that truth, that bigger truth that I'm seeking in my fiction? And I think if you do that, you can't go wrong. The late Richard Wagamese taught me one thing, and I keep thinking about it again and again. He says, leave your ego by the door and tell the story for the story's sake. So in your first draft that you're writing, get all the critical voices out of your head, get out of your head what anybody will think about what you write and how you write, and just focus on you and getting that story that you have in yourself. Late Richard Wagamese called it opening the channel. So really find that channel and open that channel when you're working on your first draft.
Great advice. Thank you. So would you read us an excerpt from one of your books, Miriam?
Sure, I can do that. You hear my dogs howling in the background?
Yes,
okay, I picked a chapter from Kakawi just because it's set in Manitoba. So it begins in Churchill, Manitoba, but it plays on the coast of Hudson Bay between Churchill and Arviat, and it will end in Arviat. So in this chapter here, I already mentioned young Emmylou is kind of forced to live in Churchill by her mother, who kind of believes in the geographical cure. Whenever things go wrong, she packs up and leaves, and Emmylou is not impressed at all. She's in Churchill, Manitoba. But then she meets Barnabas, and Barnabas is training sled dogs with his grandfather for the Arctic quest, and Emmylou becomes friend. And it is very much custom in the North. People are so open and friendly. She's almost like adopted in this family. And so in this chapter, she's going out with Barnabas and the dogs for the first time past the river. So they're crossing the Churchill River, and they're going a little bit further than they have done before. Easy, Barnabas calls, but the dogs don't listen. Every single dog is loping as fast as it can. Kakawi and Princess are letting out sharp, short barks, not being able to contain their excitement. Grumpy is snapping into the air, and Kako pulls so hard that he's running sideways. It's their first time crossing the river this winter. They can't wait to see what's ahead of them, like me. I'm sitting in the front, Barnabas behind me. Old Ipely stayed home. They both walked across the river early this morning. The ice is early this year, the old man had said. Last weekend, it already looked frozen, but old Ipely did not let us go until now. It's been cold the last few nights, and it's even colder today. The dogs' faces are frosty, and steam escapes their mouths in tiny clouds. We bounce over snow-covered piles of ice along the shore, and then through a maze of rocks. Barnabas is trying to steer us clear of the obstacles by dragging his feet on either side of the sled. He's doing well until there's a rock right ahead of us. The team splits. Half the fan runs left, the other right. I brace myself for the crash, but Barnabas jumps off, pulls the sled over and throws himself back, all within a few seconds. How did you do that? I don't know, I just did without thinking, or we would have hit that rock. He smiles. You wanna jump next time? And now he's teasing me, but I sure wish I could do what he just did. After a short rise, the land dips down again. It feels a bit like being in a valley. There are big boulders along the trail, and small spruce trees grow where the land provides protection from the harsh wind. Does this place have a name? I mutter through the scarf covering my mouth. Seahorse Gully, Barnabas says. That's where the Tuniat lived. The Tuniat? Kalunat called them Dorset people, way before Inuit. I don't know much, only that the Tuniat lived in stone houses. They were giants, but friendly. Friendly giants? A fairy tale? What happened to them? I don't know. I never thought much about who lived in the Arctic until the talk with Lisa the other day. I thought it was always Inuit. And now there are Tuniat and the Dani and maybe even others that I don't know anything about, even though it's part of my own country. Does old Ipili now? Or Elisapi? I ask. Our legends tell stories, but nobody really knows, not even Kalunat scientists. Hakavi, tighten up. Barnabas' attention turns to the dogs. You ask too many questions. Don't forget to watch your dog. I like how Barnabas calls Kakavi my dog. I watch him run, and he's less and less bouncy, but it's still easy to pick him out in the team. He gets distracted easily, stumbles over his own legs when he's not paying attention, and just can't himself from being a puppy. Barnabas stops the team. Kakavi runs to where the snow has drifted deep around a big boulder. He stuffs his head under the snow and sneezes. He tries to catch his breath, but sucks in more snow and has to sneeze again. He shakes his head as if he wants to shake the sneeze out of his nose, but it doesn't work. He sneezes again and again. Barnabas and I burst out laughing. You are such a puppy, I tell him and ruffle him behind the ears. Kakavi sneezes into my face. Let's go, we won't get to Button Bay and back before dark, Barnabas calls. I settle next to him on the sleigh. Can we go see the giant stone houses, I ask? There's not much left, just stone houses where the walls used to be, but it's all under the snow. All the interesting things I found are long gone, they're all in museums. What things? Tools like harpoon heads, also knives and scrapers and burins. Burins? Made from flint, like a chisel, maybe used for carving. Carving what? Wood, bone, ivory. Go look in the museum. In Churchill? Yes, go past the northern store toward the bay. What is it called? It used to be called Eskimo Museum, but now it's Itzanitak Museum. Itzanitak? Things from the past. Lots of things, like carvings and tools and stories. See for yourself. How far are we going? To my left, the land stretches as far as I can see. To my right, the trail turns towards the bay. Just across Button Bay down there and then up on shore again. Barnabas points north, but I can't tell which is bay and which is land. All the way to the horizon, it's flat, empty. I turn my face away and from the biting wind and the overwhelming space ahead. Once again, I feel as if someone is watching me. Out of the corner of my eye, I see someone standing on the other side of the gully. I turn around to get a better look, but all I see now is a rock glowing in the late afternoon sun. And then the strangest thing happens. I can see myself and Barnabas and all the dogs as if from above, like I was the rock looking down. And then I see shadows. No, not shadows. Actually, I don't see really anything at all. It's more a feeling. It feels like we're not alone, like there's a presence, but I can't make any sense of it. I hear children laugh, but when I try to focus on the sound, I realize it's the dogs whining. Without a command, I suddenly start running as fast as they can, straightening their lines. Whoa, 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 Barnabas calls, but the dogs don't listen. There's no sign of tiredness. The dogs are straining in their harnesses and pulling hard, their noses close to the ground. Uh-oh, Barnabas says, we better head back. What? Why? Isn't the ice safe? Look, he says, and points in the snow. I don't see anything, just snow and ice and dog tracks. Nanook, polar bear. Where? I scream. I don't know, he says. That's why we should go back. The dogs, they're chasing. See all the tracks? Now I see it. Imprinted in the snow, there are round tracks, bigger than my outstretched hand, and oval ones bigger than a human foot. What are we waiting for? Go back, I yell. Barnabas smiles. Not so easy. My grandpa, he used to hunt bear with the dogs. They go crazy when they smell bear. They don't listen to me, Barnabas says. He drags his snow hook. It slows the dogs, but they won't stop. Left, left, left. Barnabas calls, but the dogs don't turn. I frantically look around, seeing bears lurking behind jumbled eyes, but when I blink, they're gone. I tried to stop the dogs, and you jump off and chase them left, okay? Barnabas says. Wait, I yell, how? You just jump off and chase them left, like this. He stretches his arm out and makes a chewing movement, as if he's trying to hurt a bunch of runaway chickens. Whoa, Barnabas yells at the dogs. The snow hook scrapes noisily over the ice, but the dogs keep moving. Jump off. Now we're going too fast. Then suddenly the hook catches in a crack in the ice. The sled comes to a sudden stop. I'm catapulted off the sleigh. Startled by my involuntary flight exercise, the dogs turn away from me and run left. The sled swings around and we're back on our old tracks. The dogs happily chasing the scent with the same enthusiasm the other way. I scramble to my feet and run behind the team. Kakari bounces next to me, his line slack on the ground. Jump, Barnabas calls. I throw myself forward and grab the last crosspiece with my right hand. Snow is blasting in my face and crawling up my sleeve. My arms feel like it's being pulled out of its socket. At the thought of being left for barefoot gives me a strength I didn't know I had. I hang on until Barnabas manages to stop the dogs. In less than a second, I'm on the sled. Not bad for the Chaluna, he teases. I bite my lip hard to stop the tears from welling up and rub my shoulder. You okay? He asks. I nod. There he is. Barnabas points out into the bay. I see movement in the jumble eyes, something not quite as wide as the eyes, a yellow shape with a black nose pointing in our direction. Slowly he rises until he stands on his hind legs. Oh my God, he's got blood all over him. This is not the cute, fluffy tourist attraction I've seen in pictures. This is a skilled hunter, a killer at the top of the food chain. What is he doing? I whisper, my heart pounding like crazy. He can't see us, but he caught our scent. He's trying to figure out what we are. Can he catch up to us? He can't. I watch the distance between us and the bear increase, and then I remember that he can run at speeds of 40 kilometers an hour. We're not going even half that speed. Barnabas, what is he doing? I watch as the bear goes down on all four paws again. See all the blood on his nose and paws? He's got a seal or something. He won't bother us. She? She? Look. I sit on my knees and then I see them, two cubs coming out from hiding behind their mother's back. I watch them until they blend in with the jumble eyes. My heart still pounds like crazy, but my head feels light and my skin feels all tingly in a good way. It's strange. I've never been so close to actually being eaten, and yet I have never felt so alive. I'll leave it at that.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you so much. So just sort of, we're getting towards the end of the interview here, but I just wondered, what are you working on right now? Do you have any new projects on the go?
Yeah, I'm currently working on one that's also inspired by my own experience, a not so pleasant one. And I lost my cabin in the wildfires in 2015 in northern Saskatchewan. And a year before, friends of ours had lost their homestead in the Northwest Territories in wildfires. So this is the story of young Mia, who they also have sled dogs. She had dreamed of running a big race, but then the fire came and destroyed the home, and she loses her favorite lead dog. So it's about her struggle to coming to terms with the loss, and she decides to move to Toronto where she finds out there's lots of things maybe worse than forest fires. So it's a little bit about a coming of age story in the I can't say that word right. Anthropocene, I can write it. Anthropocene. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now.
Wonderful. So how can people get a hold of your books?
They can buy them in any bookstore, and they can go to your library and order them in, I guess. In Saskatchewan, at least, you can do that. Can you do that in Manitoba?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can order them in from your library, but any independent bookstore can order them in for you. And if you have to, you can always order them from Amazon as well.
Right. Perfect. So thank you again so much, Miriam, for being with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and it was lovely to hear an excerpt from your book. We will be including some links at the end of the video where you can learn a little bit more about Miriam and also her books, find out where you can purchase them. And I also believe we have a link we're adding to a bit of a longer reading of one of Miriam's books. So again, thank you, Miriam. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. And thank you all for joining us in this Safe at Manitoba Home presentation. And we hope that you all stay safe inside your walls.
Thanks for having me.